Congratulations, you've made it past the halfway mark. Our fourth objective domain is describing the features of natural language processing workloads in Azure. Within this objective domain, we're going to be looking at two areas. We're going to identify features of the common natural language processing workload scenarios, and we're going to identify tools and services for natural language processing workloads. This is still going to be an important topic because it's going to account for 15 to 20% of your overall exam. Now, what natural language processing is, it supports your different artificial applications and allows them to hear or speak and understand that auditory input or text input from those users. This may be something you're already using in your daily life. So let's go ahead and get started with Objective Domain 4. So we are going to start with identifying features of common natural language processing workload scenarios. So a quick overview of natural language processing. What this is again, remember, artificial intelligence is we're emulating human capabilities and behaviors. In this case, we're emulating the ability to see, hear, speak, and understand users. So this includes text analysis and entity recognition, sentiment analysis, speech recognition and synthesis, machine translation, and semantic language modeling. So why don't we start with text analysis and entity recognition? So this gives you the ability to analyze text documents and extract key phrases and recognize entities. And this includes places, dates, or people. So let's say, for example, a company uses AI to analyze the magazine articles, all right, that are specific to their industry. And they're trying to find out when they were mentioned or what products or executives, so that way they can figure out the main subject of each article without having to go through and read each and every one. With sentiment analysis, then kind of building on that, it can actually calculate a score about how positive or negative that particular piece of text is. So imagine if you had to read all the different tweets about your organization and figure out which ones are positive and which ones are negative, or reviews. Oh gosh, that would take forever. Well, you can use sentiment analysis to help speed that process along. With speech recognition and synthesis, this is where you are where your machine learning model or your artificial intelligence solution is interpreting spoken language, and then it's synthesizing that speech response. So this is actually really common in connected vehicles. So if you have a car system that maybe has like hands-free communication, well, what it can do to you is it alerts you and says, hey, you have a new text message. You say, read it to me. It reads you the text message, and then you respond and you're verbally dictating your response. That's going to be an example of speech recognition and synthesis. With machine translation, this is something that you may have already seen used. So this is where there is an automatic translation of spoken or written phrases between different languages. So, for example, you can add this to your inbox, or you might see it in some social media sites where it's automatically translating a message. Or, there is even conference calling systems now that provide a transcript in the speaker's words, and it takes it and it's translating it into multiple languages. PowerPoint has that in subtitles where you can turn that on. I can speak in English and it will automatically translate it into Spanish. That is an example of machine translation. And last but not least is semantic language modeling. So this is where you have a trained language model that's going to interpret commands and determine what's the next action that needs to happen. So let's say that I'm driving along in my car and it's a connected car, and I say, where can I get gas near here? But I can also say, where is the location of the closest gas station? But I can also say, give me directions to a gas station. These all mean essentially the same thing. So when you have a semantic understanding of the language being used, well, it's trying to discern what I, as the driver, want or need. So what you can do if you are an automobile manufacturer, you're actually training the language model to understand different phrases like these and then respond with, I'm looking for a GPS navigation to the closest gas station. But I can ask it in multiple ways and it will understand. All right. So that is going to be the overview of some of the different workload scenarios for natural language processing. Why don't we explore some of the different tools and services for those natural language reading processing workloads? So we've already learned that we have those cognitive services inside of Microsoft Azure, and there's some additional services to help build those natural language processing solutions. So we have text analytics, translator text, speech, and language understanding. We're going to look at each of these in detail. So the first one is going to be the text analytics services. Now, you would use the service to analyze different text documents and extract key phrases or detect entities. And remember, those entities are people, places, dates, those type of things. And you can even use it to evaluate that sentiment. Remember, that's going to be how negative or how positive something is. All right. So with what we have here is with language detection, first what it's going to do is it's going to identify what language that text was written in. So first we have, I have a wonderful vacation. It's recognizing that's in English. Then with sentiment analysis, it's going to evaluate the text and return that sentiment score and the labels for each sentence. From there, we have the key phrase extraction, and it's evaluating the text of a document or documents, and then it's identifying the main talking points of the document. Then with entity recognition, it's giving you a list of entities in the text that it recognizes and provides the link to more information on the web. All right, so what we have here is an example of, we see that this text here, I have a wonderful vacation in France. It's in English, it's overall positive. We see that key phrases is a wonderful vacation. And again, it's going to link us to France in case we wanted to do additional research. With the translator text services, this is where you're translating text between one language and another, and there's over 60 different languages available. So the translator text enables the text, like I said, between 60 different languages. So we're going from text, from bonjour to hello. Same thing with speech. We can go from hello to hola. With language understanding service, you would use this to train language models that can understand spoken or text-based commands. Now, my guess is you probably have some sort of artificial intelligence device in your home right now that uses language understanding services. So let's talk about an example. If I have a home assistant and I say, switch the light on, what I did is I made an utterance, and that utterance is I have a specific entity in there. And this is what that utterance is referencing. So in this case, I might be saying a light or a fan, but in this case I said switch the light on. And what we have lastly is the intent, and that's what I want the action to be. So in this case, I am turning that light on. So in the utterance, I say it, the entity is the light, and what's the intent? I want to turn it on. So you probably have a couple of those devices around your house and you're using language understanding and you didn't even know it. That brings us to the end of Objective Domain 4. Why don't we do a quick check-in and see how you're doing? Let's start with question 1. Remember, there's going to be a number of different question types on there, and this is just an example. You want to use the text analytics service to determine the key talking points in a text document. Which features should you use? Please choose from one of the options below. 1, is it sentiment analysis? 2, key phrase extraction? Or 3, entity detection? I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond. All right, the correct answer is option number 2. Key phrases can be used to identify the main talking points in the text document. Moving on to question 2. You plan to build an application that uses a speech service to transcribe audio recordings of phone calls into text, and then submit the transcribed text into the text analytics service to extract key phrases. You want to manage access and billing for the application services in a single Azure resource. Which type of Azure resource should you create? Should it be option 1, speech, 2, text analytics, or 3, cognitive services? I'm going to give you 30 seconds to choose one and respond. All right, the correct answer is going to be the cognitive services. While speech and text analytics can be used together, it will not create billing in one single location. So cognitive services encompasses both speech and text analytics and keeps everything in one spot. Great job. That actually brings us to the end of Objective Domain 4. So why don't we do a quick recap of what we've looked at? So we looked at the common natural language processing workloads and the different scenarios where you use them. That includes that text analysis and entity recognition, sentiment analysis, speech recognition and synthesis, machine translation, and semantic language modeling. We also looked at some of the different tools for natural language processing, which includes text analytics, translator text, speech, and language understanding. Again, remember this objective domain is going to account for 15 to 20% of your overall exam.